Morning everyone, welcome to the Licence Panel meeting today. We will begin by a round of introductions. My name's Councillor Amanda Pinnock. I'm Chair of the panel. Councillor Davis.
Good morning, I'm Councillor Paola Davis from Almondbury Ward on the panel today.
Watson.
Good morning, Councillor Michael Watson, one of the Denby Dale Ward councillors.
Council's legal representative.
Hello, my name's David Stickley. I'm a solicitor. I work for the council. I'm here to give any legal advice to the panel should they require it.
Licence officers.
Jordan Barrett, Licensing Officer. Mike Skelton, Senior Licensing Officer.
The applicant, Mr. Knight. Mr. Knight. Just identify yourself, please.
Stephen Knight.
And we've got one objector with us today, Mr. Porter. Thank you. Mr. Porter, I need... Mr. Porter, my apologies. I should have explained that when I indicate for you to speak, you need to press the button here so that we can hear you and everyone can pick up what you've got to say. Yes, please.
Yeah, I was asked to come on behalf as well of my neighbour, Mr. Leslie G., who can't be, he's ill at the moment and he has been for quite some time. And he's been in touch with certain of your colleagues through emails, internet, etc. And he has sent you, sorry, I'll get used to it yet. And he has been in touch with you, so his conditions are with you. So I can't really recite them out yet or anything like that. I can only pass on information if you say, I can say, oh, he said this or he said that or he hasn't or I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. In due course, we'll get to Mr. G's statements and your own, so we can address that nearer the time. Okay, thank you. All right, so this meeting is webcast. Just to double check that people have received all the literature. So have you, Mr. Knight, received the licensing hearing procedure, which explains how the hearing will be conducted and that you've read it and you understand it?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Porter?
Yes, I've received it and I've read it through as best I can.
And you understand it? There aren't any questions?
No.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll begin by going through the agenda and then we'll get to the application as to why we're here today. So this morning there was a site visit at Mole Springs Brewery in Netherton. Councillors went along and had a look at the particular area, the subject area of what we'll be discussing later on in the agenda. Minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 5th of December. Can colleagues approve? Those are correct. Thank you. Any interest to declare from colleagues? Okay. Admissions of the public. This is webcast. Any deputations or petitions?
None received, Chair.
Public question time?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. So we'll go straight into the reason why we're here, which is an application for grant of premises licence of Mole Springs Brewery, Mole Springs, Netherton, Huddersfield. And can I ask the licensing officer, please, to outline the case, please?
Thank you, Chair. On the 10th of October 2022, the Licensing Department received an application for the grant of a premise licence for Mole Springs Brewery. The application was made by a company called Mole Springs Brewery Limited. A copy of the application may be seen at Appendix A. The licensable activities applied for by the applicant are as follows. So, sale of alcohol both on and off the premise Monday to Sunday, 12 midday till 10:30 at night. In total, 2 representations from members of the public have been received relating to this application. The application was also served on responsible authorities, to which 1 representation was received from Environmental Health. The applicant has agreed to the conditions Environmental Health have requested. The signed conditions may be seen at Appendix B. Both members of the public were consulted about the agreed conditions. 1 did not respond and the other responded stating they were still not happy with the application. The representations that were received considered that the following licensing objectives would not be met should this licence be granted. So prevention of public nuisance, prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, protection of children from harm. A copy of the representations may be seen at Appendix C. Moor Springs Brewery has had several temporary events notices the previous calendar year. Licensing have not received any complaints from responsible bodies or from local residents. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving to questions. So I just want to double check something with you. So on page 53, we have one of the objectors' email setting out the objections, but it seems as though there might be some more information or another sheet of paper. So I just wanted to double check. It may be Mr. Porter's email. I'm not sure, but it just looks a little bit incomplete. So I just wanted to check that this is all that was received.
I think that was it. I'll just double check. No, that was it. Sorry. That was it.
Thank you. Just wanted to double check that. I'll turn to my colleagues now to see if they have any questions. Councillor Davis? Councillor Watson? Thank you. Okay, so we'll move to the applicant, Mr. Knight, if you'd like to make representations about this application for us, please.
Yeah, council officer is going to read my statement.
So I've been given a statement to read from Mr. Knight. So the statement says, I've always been interested in brewing beer and friends. Locals and family encouraged me to start Moor Springs Brewery and start brewing on a more commercial scale, to see how local beers will be accepted by the local community and surrounding villages. So over the last 2 years, Moor Springs Brewery has gone from strength to strength as a pop-up brewery during the difficult period of lockdown with outdoor seating. Other businesses were struggling with COVID and did not open during lockdown, so our brewery became a hub for locals and supporters of the brewery as we have a large outdoor space. We have improved the outdoor area with tarmac and created a safe seating area. We have operated a number of temporary events over lockdown and in 2022, and we have always finished our events before 7 p.m. We have had 50 events from 2020 to 2022. Our neighbours are very important to us, and we've always ensured we have stewards on the entrance to the premise to ensure the roads and entrances open for access. We will continue to manage customers throughout. We intend to move our events with the premise licence application to inside the brewery to minimise noise, and no music will continue after 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Knight, I'm going to ask, we're going to deal with questions, so I might have some questions and my colleagues might have some questions for you based on the statement that's just been given. So you say in the statement that you've held temporary events in the past. 50 events have been held. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about those?
We started off in COVID because of obviously outside work service. We employed free staff, local lasses, to serve on tables during COVID. And we started off with acoustic music, which is non-amplified music, for the first 10 events. And then as the restrictions eased, we were one of the first venues in Huddersfield to have live rock music outside again. So that's what we've done.
And how would you describe those events? Would you say they were successful?
Especially in lockdown. There were nowhere to go in lockdown. That was the biggest problem, because a lot of pubs don't have outside spaces. But the events were weather dependent. English weather's sometimes good, some of them were more successful than others. Some were disasters.
So how many people would you say attended these events then?
Between 100 and the last busy one were the last one in September, which were a local rock band called Storm with about 400 people at it.
Okay, and did you receive any comments from people who live in the area?
Well, no comments at all. I mean, to be quite honest with you, the local riding stables, which is adjacent to it, which is just as near as these houses are, both their two children work for us. They worked as bar staff for us.
So we've seen the application that you've put forward today, in terms of alcohol sales on and off premises. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you intend to do?
We'd probably go down function route. Like we even had a wedding planned. We've cancelled that because we didn't know we were going to get a premises licence. But I think it would be more of a function and music venue, because Huddersfield's crying out for live music. I mean, the problem is with Huddersfield is a lot of the venues in Huddersfield aren't big enough. Mole Springs were big enough to do decent-sized music events.
So is this something you're intending to do 7 days a week?
No intention of doing it 7 days a week.
So what are your intentions then?
Probably just Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 'Cause I've got a day job, so I can't do too much. In fact, I'm going to actually slow it down. Might only do it a couple of times a month.
So when you do hold these events then, are they likely to be between 12 and 10:30?
Probably 12 and 7, to be quite honest with you. Usually put a band on it. At 4 o'clock, 2 45-minute sessions. You finish for 7. I think there was just one event last year where it ran over to 7:45 because the band arrived 45 minutes late due to a flat tyre.
So in your application, you've applied for Monday to Sunday, 12 to 10:30 in the evening.
Yeah.
If you're planning to finish for 7 o'clock, is there any scope to mend the application?
There's scope in it anyway. They always put wiggle room in. I mean, that's what I do this for a job. I run events. I'm actually licensee of a local pub as well. I don't know if licensing know that. I also give advice to a couple of big businesses in Huddersfield. I've got a couple of big clients which I'm their advisor in licensing. So the customer's always first in my eyes.
And I can see from the application that Environmental Health have also made recommendations.
Yeah.
And I think a document went out for you to have a look at and sign. Have you signed that document to say that you accept those conditions?
I've signed that conditions. I mean, I work with environmental health anyway, because when I'm doing events, sound nuisance is the most important thing of all events. I mean, I do every single big event in Huddersfield apart from Food and Drink Festival. So noise nuisance is my bread and butter. If I get it wrong, I lose thousands of pounds, I lose jobs.
So in the application, you will have seen that 2 individuals have objected
Yeah.
to what you're putting forward today. Around noise nuisance, around, prevention of crime and disorder, around public nuisance, public safety, protection of children and so on. What comments, how would you address?
Straight away about public safety. As the crowd we get, it's not a rough crowd, it's a nice crowd, it's a homely crowd, and a lot of people who come within a mile of Mole Springs. It's set between Neverton and Honley, so that's where they all come from. Huddersfield, it's not.
Okay, I don't have any more questions for now. Councillor Davis?
I just want to explore, there were some issues raised about traffic, and you've got up to 400 people coming to an event. What's your traffic management?
That's dead easy, traffic management. Nobody should be bringing cars to a drinking event. That's my main thing. I mean, I'm totally against pubs with car parks. I do not understand why pubs have got car parks. To be quite honest with you, if you're coming out for a drink, you'll walk, or you'll get a taxi.
But that's still, okay, so with the best will in the world, people will still drive to events, people may still have a designated driver, even the taxis coming.
There's a quiet country road down there, there's a lay-by down there. There's room in that lay-by for about 6 or 7 cars. There's other roads. We do not encourage, once we have an event on, we do not encourage cars onto the back of Mole Springs. In fact, when there's an event on, there's less cars than what there is on a working day.
Okay, thank you.
I think a supplementary to that question asked by my colleague, how are you expecting customers to, or how have customers got there in the past? Are they customers from the local area?
They've walked down. It's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. You're there thinking nobody's going to turn up. Then 2 o'clock, there's streams of people walking down from Neverton. They're even using a public footpath that goes past this gentleman's house. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. I mean, that's the only accident we've had all the time, is somebody walked down the public footpath and where it joins to a housing development, they broke their ankle. That's the only accident we've had down there.
Got a supplementary, Councillor Davis? No? Councillor Watson?
You talked about, I think, having bans there in the past through COVID and so forth, and I got the impression that was outside.
Yeah.
You signed up to the licensing conditions from the Environmental Health, which basically would forbid that. Does that cause you a problem? You're able to operate internally?
We go inside, to be quite honest with you, we go inside. I mean, I'd love to do it outside, but it's a better acoustic outside. I mean, I work with some of the biggest bands in the UK. I'm an electrician for 2 or 3 big bands who tour regularly. And outside music's a lot better than inside.
I'll move to the licensing officer. Any questions?
No, Chair.
Mr. Porter, any questions? You'll have an opportunity to make submissions, but do you have any questions for Mr. Knight?
Well, obviously it's the first time that I've heard that application, and quite honestly, so obviously I've got to think about this. I'm not prepared for whatever anybody asks me, except for what I've complained about. And for us, that area, the mill yard and the mill itself, is our only access up to our houses, and with that amount of people, I mean, I haven't been around to watch to see all that, because I don't want to have to go to my own house
But do you have a question for Mr. Knight about what he said today? Is there anything that springs to mind that you want to know a little bit more
sorry,
about?
yeah. It's, as I say, I'm not particularly used to this, but I mean, Mr. Knight is just saying that he's got how many people do actually turn up at the functions? Did you say 5?
Between the smallest one we've had about 25. The biggest one was Storm, which was September. Storm are one of the most popular rock bands in Huddersfield area. I think we had about 400 to 450 people at that one.
It's a lot of people when you're going to get that sort of thing. It's a lot of people to have to be going through in and out to our own access. Because obviously when it's set up for outside, obviously we have to go through them, past them, in between them, whatever. I mean, I've got some photographs of them, but they're only on my phone. I can't really ask any of the things. He's just told me what he's doing, so I can't force questions, but obviously I don't approve of them because we live there on the spot, and that is my answer, and I've lived there for many, many years, and so has my neighbour.
Right, okay.
And obviously that sort of thing. At the weekends, when it's allegedly our quiet time, it used to be light industrial. Nothing wrong with light industrial. Nothing wrong with brewing beer and employing people, so long as it's not. The objection is that we don't want it to be sold in public on our own doorstep.
Okay, all right.
So that's really to try and put it all together.
So, Mr. Porter, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to the application. So this part of the procedure was about giving you an opportunity to ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, based on what you've heard or based on the application. The next stage is to open the floor so that you can say why you're objecting to this particular application and how you feel it might impact on you and the surrounding area.
Well, really, it's on. I mean, I don't know it off my heart, but it's on the complaint that I put on. Really, that answers all the questions. So, you know, I'll just the best way I can do it really is, and I tried to put it within the. Just let me get this right now. The 4 criteria: prevention of crime, to children and things like that. I try to relate it to there all the time. It's not a crime area. To the best of my knowledge, there's been few incidents. I'm not saying not any. But mainly the thing is that if this is going to be issued, then our lifestyle, as we've always known it there, which is quiet, secluded, relatively private, to be having up to so many, possibly hundreds of people there, and they're not all going to be walking, and it's not going to be all the time, but that licence could approve it to be done at any time, so it could change the whole character, the whole nature of the area, and our lifestyle there. I'm not saying this as well as I thought because I didn't know how the questions were going to go, but as I say, it's not just to brew alcohol there, which it already does. Okay, that's a business, so long as it's sold to customers and businesses elsewhere. But to consume it on the said properties in question for at least up to 12 hours a day, coming and going 12 hours a day, whether there's nobody there, people there, the option is that it's always going to be there. And that's an entirely different scenario, especially for us residents on our doorstep. And people's relaxation times, particularly weekends, bank holidays, when the main of the people will be out. We'll get all that. Just one other point I'm thinking now. The farm that you just mentioned, and I didn't know there were two people that live there that are employed by him. They will not object. They will not object. They've not lived there all that many years, but at the end of the day, they have developed into business. Into cottages, holiday cottages. So I was quite sure that they wouldn't support us. Because it would be in their interest to say, and we are next to a brewery, we are next to an entertainment place, so it will be in their interests for them not to object to it, because it will be in their best interests to advertise it to the people that come and stay with them. And as I say, for it to, our quiet weekends, not saying we don't have quiet weekends, I mean, obviously at the moment and the weather in the winter, but this is going to allow it to be a place where everybody knows, so we're never going to know when it's going to be busy, when it isn't busy, whether what we've got to go through getting in and out of the mill yard. And it is also very busy at the moment, but that is understandable because there's been more vehicles for the other businesses being there. And there is other things down there as well, which are making it increasingly more difficult. But that is not the complaint. But that's how it's going to. That is how the situation will deteriorate rather than improve. That is what I'm trying to say.
Have you finished, or?
Yes, just at the moment, it's not just that easy to formulate it together. And as I say, I've got sort of mitigating circumstances written down somewhere, but that might go off the. I don't want it to imply that it might water down the objections that my neighbour and I have got, because they could be separate issues altogether. And he has dealt more with that side than I have, with him being housebound at the moment and being able to contact your colleagues. But okay, I've finished now, otherwise I'll ramble.
So you mentioned something about mitigating circumstances that you've got written down. I think it's really important that you tell us everything about your objections. So if you missed anything out, definitely, let the panel know.
I'll skip through them. I'll just try and skip through these. It's not just a licence to brew alcohol here, which it already does to existing customers elsewhere, but it is to be consumed on the premises for at least 12 hours a day. Not that everybody's going to be there 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Not that everybody's going to be there 7 days a week, but the place is going to be open and people can go there at any time. So we're not going to be able to have any control of when it's going to be busy, when it isn't. Not that we need control, but we know when it's busy. During the week it's busy, at the weekend, at the quiet times it's quiet. After 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night, with the exception of one or two of the businesses that will work late. Indeed, the brewery would have to work late just to produce beer, I should well imagine. Quite understand that, but for the whole general public, for it to be open to that extent to us, and it being the type of area that it is, a lovely valley with just a farm, 2 or 3 houses and another premises below the mill, light engineering, and it'll retain. Otherwise, if it's going to get that, if it's going to have that emblazoned on it, then we have no. Each time we were to leave or return to our properties or just enjoy being there outside, our privilege could of living in a quiet, peaceful, rural location will obviously be violated. The footpath from Honley to the mill, I'm not talking about the mill end from Netherton and up the mill yard, but there's lots and lots of more people using it now, which is okay. Yeah, there's always been walkers, there always will be. We now get mountain bikes, occasional horse riders. I don't want to exaggerate about that. And of course, it's making the place far well known, so far more people are going to get enveloped onto it. And our front doors go straight down onto the path, albeit a public footpath, but we've got some of the property at the other side, some of the land that we got off a previous owner of the mill through my father, not so much myself, but that's our. So we're going to get on business. We're just going to get people 200, a million about as soon as we walk outside, and obviously we've got to. It's going to be to our disadvantage. However frequent or infrequent this may appear, this licence is a licence that will escalate the problem which we're starting to have a bit before reducing it. That is one reason why we were against the original licence idea in the first place, when we were first made aware, told by representatives of the aforesaid company for the temporary licence. I wanted to see how far it would go, but I knew what it would lead to. Once you got a temporary licence, it was going to go to more and more and more, and it was going to open up the whole thing. Not so good for us residents. Just let me catch up with this, because I know what it is. Never actually saw the temporary licence application displayed. So obviously it wasn't somewhere at the time where I could contact, or we could contact it in black and white, like this licence has been advertised on the telegraph poles, etc. And before making any decisions, I've just put this, and I think it might be in there. Before making decisions about our objections and concerns, and basically, please make sure, if you happen to read them again or whatever, from our points of view concerning some devastating effect that our years of living here will be subjected to. Since I last contacted you, I know that there's an ongoing situation with the spring itself at the moment, and that has deteriorated. That's not blaming the. That's not. You can't blame the brewery for that, but it does need looking at. Just let me get into residence. It is already changing and taking away the complete nature of the whole valley, because obviously, well as we've known it, and a permanent or even a temporary licence is just a start for worse to come. Possible, this is not going to happen all the time, but it can happen at any time between 12 and 7, 8, 9, 10, 7 days a week, bar, restaurant, possibly, music, bands, events. You've heard, I didn't know that Mr. Knight was a landlord of a pub. I certainly didn't know how many events and things that he's so experienced at doing. And I mean, I would just say, what consideration do we get from the brewery, which we've no objection to working and employing people there, whether it's or whatever, but just bear in mind what it's going to, how it's going to devastate us. As I put here, brewery to produce beer there, fine, doesn't affect the area, but opening to all and sundry on any premises around Moll Springs area, certainly not. And I did say what I thought of the area itself, the mill area itself. There are certain, I think, disadvantage, but that is in the, but that, I'm not going to go through that again. That is in the original complaint that I put in for us residents, not showing any consideration here whatsoever. We don't want to change their business. We don't want it expanding to what it will be, because it will affect us. But it is that's going to change ours for their own personal advantages, gains, regardless of others. I know that my neighbour was more aware of this because he's got the end house. When they do have large events there, the children that they have has been had to go. This is another problem, safety as well. When those events have been, whether they're inside or outside, whatever, for us to be coming up and down, cars walking, whatever, but particularly if there's going to be people that could be drinking from 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the morning at certain times for certain reasons till late in the evening, and we're having to come up and down and avoid possible people walking to and fro straight across, which is our access up to our own homes. It's going to be something that we shouldn't be subjected to. We never have been. Even the mills, even the factory, the mill itself, which has got several different businesses in, and some of them do. I'm sure Mr. Knight's company has got to work nights because they've got to brew on a night. So that just means having a brewery or something like that, or whatever. But it's a lot different to waking up one morning and going out and everything's laid out and spread out. And even if it's not happening outside, the inside, which he says is going to extend and do, they've still got to park. People do have to park. Like you said, I'm not saying everybody's going to come drinking and driving, far from it, but there's always going to be, if they're going to get 300 or 400 people there, there's always going to be cars and one driver who's not going to drink. Let me be diplomatic about that, who's not going to drink. But they've got to park cars, they've got to set up, they've got to set out, and even if it's inside, it still creates a problem. People coming and going, to in and fro in. So I'm not going to go on any other length, but I just hope you get the gist of how it's affecting us. It isn't a case of question and answers and do this. It's quite simple, in my opinion, that the business has taken it too far to our disadvantage at the moment. And I'm not talking, I don't even agree with the temporary licence, because that, I'm not sure whether a temporary licence is the same as a pop-up licence where you can have it for certain events, but every time an event is one, we can just throw the temporary licence up, and or a pop-up licence. I think that's why they call it a pop-up licence. So it can happen at any time, and we're just going to be affected like that at the drop of a hat. Sorry if I've gone on too long.
No,
I'm
it's
not
fine.
used to having to do this, and I and my neighbour, and we've gone through this, and my neighbour's got a different tack for it, which your other colleagues may be aware of.
It's important that we get a full understanding of, your objections and how you feel it might impact on you, and that will help us form a decision today about whether we're going to grant it, or, if we do, is it going to be the full you know, what's been requested, or we're going to look at something different. So it's important that we hear from you and that you do give us a detailed account of, you know, of your view on things. So I'm really grateful for that. But I've got a couple of questions, okay? Yeah. So Mr. Knight said that, I think since COVID, he mentioned that they've had about 50 events that have taken place. Yeah. And there's been varying numbers of attendees, between 25 and 400, I think he said, during that period. That's a lot of events. But I'm interested to know, you know, are you aware of that? And how have those events impacted on you?
I knew of most of the events, but some of the events when I wasn't there at the time, I didn't. I wasn't aware. But I was always told by what my neighbour and myself thought, and his wife, is that they were just one-off things and they weren't going to keep having another and another and another. And I got to the stage where I would prefer to be away from the place rather than be subject to going to and fro it.
But how did any of them impact on you? Did you notice it? You know, was it inconvenient?
Yes, it was.
How was it inconvenient?
Well, because, and I'm speaking for a neighbour really as well, we got to a situation where, well, as I say, I tried to be away, and particularly during the COVID time as well. I'll be quite honest, because I was looking after somebody during that period of time. I didn't actually see. I didn't even know he could do that during COVID, because I thought everything was shut down. But it was mainly when they got this pop-up licence. Sorry, I shouldn't say pop-up licence, temporary licence, that I think that well, I'm saying I think, I know, that I just didn't, that it really hit me.
So am I right in concluding then that when these events have happened, it hasn't directly impacted on you?
Not until the COVID, not until the COVID was lifted, because quite honestly, I don't think. Yeah, I'm probably making a big hole for myself here. I probably didn't. Even my neighbours didn't mention it. So whatever happened then is not like it's happening now. It seems to have. I've noticed it more. I've noticed it more since the COVID's been lifted, and so there's been more and more people.
And that's what I want to understand. What have you noticed more? What have you noticed about these events? I want to know how it's impacted on you. If these events have been happening and they've had 100 or 200 attendees, you know, have you noticed that? Has it impacted on you?
Well, only to the sense that I've got relatives. I was looking after a lady friend, and whether I knew who's passed away, not there, but in her own place, and so that during that period of time, I thought, well, I won't be there. I'll wait. So I've kept away from them. But quite honestly, even when I didn't, they weren't mentioned. So I can't really say how they affected me at COVID, because COVID had rules of its own. And if I'd have been there, I wouldn't have been able to look after my lady friend at her house, and she would have probably finished up in a home. So I had to be in one place or the other. So during particularly weekending times, whenever there was, I had to be there anyway.
I think it'd be helpful if Mr. Knight clarified events after COVID. Did you have events after COVID?
We had events after COVID, but the events after COVID, apart from Storm, there were quite low numbers. We had better numbers in COVID than we'd got post-COVID.
Right. Can you remember
Apart
how
from
many
that-
events after COVID? So can you put some dates on it for us?
I haven't got any dates, but I can basically every weekend after Easter we did after COVID.
2021.
Yeah, 2021. We did every weekend.
Any this year?
None this year. It's a new year.
Sorry, last year. Sorry. Any last year?
That was last year after COVID, after Easter. We started at Easter every Saturday and Sunday after Easter. So we did 25 last year because they extended the amount of Thames you could have from 20 to 25 last year. So we took full advantage of that.
So, Mr. Porter,
Yeah.
you've heard the information that's been given there, that events have happened, a number of events happened last year, about 25 events happened last year. Are you aware of that? Are you aware of that?
I'm surprised actually that 20 odd event. Well,
25 events from Easter onwards because they extended the rules for the temporary events to 20, I'm sure it was 25. Licensing officer.
Okay. So I've got some other questions. I think we need to move on. So we've heard from Mr. Knight when he made his submissions about the number of events that he's wanting to put on if the licence was granted today. And what he's sort of proposing is that it's likely to be over the weekend or maybe a few events during the month. Have you any thoughts on that? Originally, the application indicated Monday to Sunday, 12 until 10 p.m. in the evening.
right.
But what he's saying is, in reality, it's likely to be just the weekends or a couple of times during the month.
I didn't know anything about that. Sorry, that isn't what I can't really. You've fired that at me now. Excuse me. You've fired that at me now, and that I didn't know anything about that it was going to be reduced.
Well, the panel didn't know that, and that's why we're here, so we can understand a lot more about what Mr. Knight wants.
Sorry, can I just clarify? Are we dealing with a reduced application here then? So it's not for the full hours as per... It's been reduced, has it?
They've applied for, I think they've applied from midday till 10:30, but Environmental Health have asked them to...
Yeah, but only on a few days.
I think it's just in general, just to reduce the times till 7 p.m.
So there's no reduction. I think what I'm trying to establish is, because Mr. McKnight has seemed to have made a counter proposal, which may be something we could explore.
No.
So we're now dealing with you've now proposed reducing the application. I just want to be clear on this.
I'll wait till you finish. The original licence was for them hours, just a wide-bodied figure. But we haven't actually reduced it, but it'd just be a gentleman's agreement. But I'd do what I was going to say just weekends. It was just in case now and again, if we did ever got an event during the week, you understand what I mean, like a wedding or something like that. It's best to have a premises licence.
I'm not clear. I got the impression there that we were actually talking about a reduced hours application now.
Sorry, he actually put in his statement that he's prepared to go to 7 o'clock. It wasn't in the environmental health conditions. It was on his statement.
But yeah, noise would be off for 7 o'clock would bounce like, yeah. I've actually put that in my statement, which is true, yeah. It's just the actual drinking bit.
Can I just be clear? Are we discussing an application here that ends at for a licence that ends at 7, or are we talking about one that's later?
Well, the full licence from from midday till 10:30. But then Mr. Knight has put a statement in saying he's prepared to reduce the hours until 7.
Yeah. So are we discussing an application for a licence until 10 o'clock at night or until 7 o'clock at night?
I'll answer that, Councillor, if I can. The licence application is for the sale of alcohol 7 days a week up until 10:30 at night. Okay. One thing we need to consider with this application that the only licensable activity that Mr. Knight is applying for is the sale of alcohol. We've had lots of talk about live entertainment and what have you, and as I'm sure Councillor Pinnock will be aware, and certainly Mr. Stickley, of the deregulation of the Live Music Act, live music can be played in a premise that benefits from a premise licence up to 11 p.m. at night for an audience of under 500, and that activity does not need to be on the premises licence. So Mr. Knight in his statement has said, I'm going to have bands, I'm going to have some music, but I will keep that to 7 p.m. And that's Mr. Knight saying, I'm prepared to do that. he doesn't have to, but he is saying that, and he doesn't have to because he's not applied for that on the licence. So we have no control over any timings of live music. He knows he can't do it beyond 11 o'clock. I think as a gentleman's agreement, he's saying, I'm going to do this. You could.
That's clear, thank you.
You could have that as a condition on the licence if you feel that that is appropriate. Thank you.
Yeah, all I'm doing here is obviously exploring what Mr Knight has today for the first time brought to the table that we're aware of as a panel, and whether Mr Porter, you know, now hearing those potential changes, or, you know, how the situation may differ, whether you've got any observations on that, any additional concerns. So that was the only reason why I was really asking those questions, because you're hearing it for the first time, we're hearing it for the first time.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to. I'm not prepared to make a concession like that at the moment. And my colleague, my neighbour, should I say, if I were to go back, which I would do, and tell him that it's got a reduced one, which has just been chucked in, without him even knowing and saying I've done it on his behalf, I couldn't do that, because that would cause us. That would cause friction between us. He should have said no, and I know what would be said. We said no, but at least give us all a chance to think about it. I mean, if you're going to make a decision, if you don't mind me saying so, if you're going to make a decision on that now, we've had no preparation whatsoever. A gentleman's agreement and a concession. I thought that needs, as far as we're concerned, that needs thought. May I say that with?
Yeah, and I think
that is my answer. We need to think.
Yeah.
As the officers pointed out, this is about the drinks licence. It's about on drinking alcohol on or off the premises. It's not necessarily about live music. So that's a different issue. Or even some of the concerns that you've raised. Right.
I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have any questions for you, Mr Porter. Councillor Davis? Councillor Watson?
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Mr Knight, do you have any questions for Mr Porter?
Oh, none at all. I've said everything in my statement. That's it. Thank you.
I should ask the licensing officer.
No questions, thank you.
So we don't have anyone here from any other responsible authority, but we know Environmental Health have put in information about conditions which Mr Knight has signed. And Mr Porter, you will have seen that as part of the bundle that's been given to you about the application. Right, so we're coming to the end of discussing this particular application. So I'll ask each person to sum up, is there anything in particular that you'd want to say to imprint on the panel's minds about, you know, your thoughts in relation to the application? So I'm going to start with the licensing officer. I'm going to ask Mr Knight, and then I'm going to come to you, okay, to see if there's anything else that you'd like to say to sum up what you've already said already. So I'll move to the licensing officer.
Thank you. So on 10th October 2022, licensing received the premise licence application for Moll Springs. The licensable activity is applied for the sale of alcohol, both on and off, Monday to Sunday, 12 midday till 10:30 p.m. We received 2 objections from members of the public. Environmental Health have requested conditions to be applied to the licence they've granted, which the agent has signed and returned. In the statement, the applicant has put forward a suggestion that he finishes the events before 7 p.m, and that could be added as a condition onto the licence. So it's now a decision of the panel to grant with conditions or refuse the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Knight.
No comments.
Mr Porter, anything else you want to say to us that can help us make our minds up about the application?
Sorry. No, I've not had time to think about this that's being put on, and it's very. I'm just slightly perplexed that you can make it a decision. Well, it must be okay to for you to make a decision now, but there's been no time factor to because of this new condition for us to take it away and analyse it. I'm not expecting it, I'm not asking it to, it's got to go on forever like that, but I just feel as though it's not, it seems a difficult, it's a difficult one. I can only make no comment, but I don't agree. I'm afraid it's just one thing, again, leading to another. And
just to clarify, there are no new conditions. There are no new conditions.
No. Right, okay. No comment then, yes.
Okay. So the panel need an opportunity now to think about what's been said. Okay, so if I can ask everyone to go outside to give us an opportunity and to make our minds up about the application. Thank you. So the panel were asked this morning to consider the application for the grant of premises licence for Mole Springs, Netherton. And after hearing submissions and representations made by everyone present and agreed conditions put forward by Environmental Health, which is set out in the bundle, the panel have taken the decision to grant the licence as applied for, which is 12 p.m. to 22:30 hours. If there are any issues with how the applicant is conducting, you have any problems, any concerns with that, then it's important that you get back in touch with the licensing team or Environmental Health. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today. And I'll end this part of the meeting. Thank you. So we'll begin by a round of introductions, and then I will give all the parties concerned an opportunity to speak. When I direct you to speak, you'll need to press the button on this machine here, okay, and speak into the mic so that everybody can hear you loud and clear, and so you can be seen because the hearing today is webcast. All right, so I'll begin with myself. My name's Councillor Amanda Pinnock. I'm chair of the panel. Councillor Davis?
I'm Councillor Paola Davis. I'm one of the ward councillor for Almonbury Ward on the panel today.
Councillor Michael Watson, I'm one of the Denbydale ward councillors.
Licensing officers?
Hello, I'm Phil Asquith. I'm the licensing officer.
Mike Skelton, senior licensing officer.
Okay, the applicants and the applicant's representative?
Hello, I'm Anil Bowser, Green Hill Licenses, licensing agent for the applicant.
Hi, I'm Jodhini Antron.
Hi, I'm Joy Nirmal.
Thank you. And according to the application, there are 3 objectors, all ward councillors: Councillor Gwen Lowe, Councillor Shabir Pandor, and Councillor Yusra Hussain. And I understand that none of these councillors are here today. So just to confirm that this meeting today is webcast, so members of the public can see, can watch. Just to double check that everyone's received the licensing procedure, which explains how the hearing is conducted, and that you've had an opportunity to read it and that you understand the information. Could you just confirm for me, please?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
So I'll turn to the licensing officers then.
To the licensing officers and ask them to outline the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On the 2nd of December 2022, the Licensing Department received an application for the grant of a premises licence for Sun News, 178 Healy Lane, Batley, WF178BN. The application was made on behalf of the applicant by Greenhill Licences, 20 Craighill Road, Leicester, LE2 3FB. A copy of this application may be seen at Appendix A. A plan of the location of the premises can be found at Appendix B. There has been no licence at this premises previously. The licensable activity applied for by the applicant are as follows. The sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises, Monday to Sunday, 7 a.m. until 2200 hours, which is 10 p.m. In total, 3 representations from Batley West Ward councillors have been received relating to the application. The application was also served on responsible authorities to which no representations were received. The representations that were received consider that the following licensing objectives would not be met should this licence be granted: public nuisance and the prevention of crime and disorder. A copy of the representations may be seen at Appendix C. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move to questions. I don't have any questions for the licensing officer. Councillor Davis? Councillor Watson? Thank you. So we'll move to the applicant, and if I can ask the applicant or the applicant's representatives, please, to make submissions.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application for a new premises licence for Sun News. Next to me are Mr. and Mrs. Anton. They're the applicants. They've got 15 years of experience between them in retail grocery off licence. They've recently purchased this business about 3 months ago, and they live actually next door, 176 as well as living above the property of 178. So the properties are adjoining. Now, this is a primarily a newsagent grocery store, and it has been for many years. What they want to do is add a small area of alcohol to sell from the store. It's a small section. Between 10 and 15% of the area will be located to display of alcohol. What we'd like to comment on at this stage is to say that the actual retailers are responsible in all their actions as a retailer. We have today brought all the evidence of training that they've had and all the training that they'll implement in running the store as a family business. So they will have log registers, CCTV, as mentioned in the agreement that came through from the licensing team. We've already agreed on the terms and conditions from the agreement form that was sent in. I think it was the first or second week of the application. Now, what you will not have received, or possibly you may have received, is there was a petition that was actually, but it wasn't submitted in time for you to maybe accept. But we do have the original copies, which I said to Philip that we will bring in. This is in support of the application from the local residents, their customers in actual fact. What we do know that the further down the road there is another store, and the objectors do mention that, one of them, the councillors do mention that, but this does not indicate that these retailers will behave in the manner that the other retailer has behaved by selling unauthorised alcohol. The personal licence holder, in this case Mrs. Anton, has applied for a personal licence, the certificate, and the DBS is being processed, I believe, very soon this week. They're not in particular hurry to sell alcohol, but they will just want to get all the paperwork ready so that they can pursue at the end of this month, if that's the case. If you would like to see the original documents by signatories for the local area, we do have them here available. At this point, I'd await and ask for any questions to be raised, and we can soon answer those.
Okay. My question is really around what the objectors have said, the ward councillors, who clearly know the area well. It's their patch. And they have talked about problems within the area, such as drinking, drug abuse, bottles lying around, so on and so forth. So I'm just wondering, whether you've got any comments to make about that.
Certainly. Having done checks and spoken to the local police in the area, especially with regards to antisocial behaviour, we did not get any reaction that was untowards us applying for an off licence. Having spoken to other people in the area with regards to the noise team or the environment department, we've not had any negative responses. So the application was sent, I believe, to all the authorities, but we did not get any response from them. Had we had that response, we could implement any possible measures that we need to take place. Having said that, we do have already a litter bin outside the store that has already been placed there. I can't really comment as to why there's litter across from the other shop, and whether they are encouraging or discouraging, I can't vouch for them. But what I can tell you is this, is that between these two applicants, they have got 15 years experience, but not just selling alcohol in a grocery store, but they know about the measures to take. For example, training staff not to sell to drunk people, not to sell to anyone that is causing antisocial behaviour. It's a family business, so they care how the customers are going to react to that as well. So it's very important for them that this is a community store. So if that was the case, they would be irresponsible to do that. Now, this application is based on them being a responsible retailer for the long term. So with regards to I understand what the local councillor, one of them actually lives not far from one of the shops, I believe. That's what was mentioned. What we can say to the objectors in this response is that this couple, this family, will be selling with complete responsibility. And what the other thing is to say that is that they're regularly going to be trained into doing so. Should they employ any members of part-time staff, perhaps, they will also be training them, and records will be kept, as well as the log register, which is, again, is going to be a natural event. Looking at the evidence of the other sorts of things, we mentioned posters, Challenge 25, no sale, no ID, no sale posters. They're all here, but they'll all be placed on the actual inside of the store, and where people can see them at the counter. So it's not to have a negative impact on what the objectors are saying. It's just that they are keen to impress that this won't necessarily increase antisocial behaviour or selling. Because remember, they're not selling to under 18s. Yeah, proxy selling is illegal, so they're aware of this sort of training already, and posters will be again on the walls.
Do you see any benefits of them living next door?
Any benefits of them? Well, the benefits, it means that they're there for the long term. They are not just running a business like a lock-up shop. So they care about the area. So if there's any kind of antisocial behaviour, they care about their own children that are there. So they'll be using the footpaths on the streets in the same way the neighbours will be. So mentioning that they live there is important because they feel it's a safe area. Now, I have done checks on the police.uk's website. It doesn't show any negative impact. Maybe that's the reason the police did not have any objections. I can't really say why, but as far as when we did the initial planning stage for the application, they insisted as well that this area is a nice area, it's a quiet area, and the neighbours and the customers are actually quite respectful. So that otherwise they wouldn't have moved to this area to run a business, and they have got experience in running businesses like this. And it is a small shop anyway. It's not a Tesco Express or a medium-sized shop in any. So it's a small family-run business. That's what they hope to run here.
So I'll move to my colleagues then to see if you have any questions. Councillor Davis? Councillor Watson? Licensing officers, any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so as I've said in the beginning, there are a number of objectors, 3 ward councillors, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to read what the ward councillors have to say about this particular application. So if you just bear with me. So we have an objection from Councillor Gwen Lowe. She says that declaration of interest from me, as I live quite close to the shop. I think that's the councillor that you're referring to. And there's already an off licence only several yards away from across the road, junction of Mortimer Avenue. Alcohol bought from here is sometimes consumed on the steps of the old warehouse across the road. Bottles and cans just left, so I don't feel there's a need for another one. She says we also suffer from intermittent antisocial behaviour from youths in this. Evidence of them congregating and drinking is on the nearby Snicket, where frequently empty cans and bottles, brackets, particularly Budweiser brackets, are found. I've also witnessed males on this Snicket in the middle of the morning drinking alcohol here. Walking the dog doesn't feel safe. And then there's another one from Councillor Shabir Pandor. He says there has been many instances when there have been drinking and drug abuse in Jessop's Park. I have copied in our local sergeant who will be able to provide further details. This causes major upset to local residents and took a long time and resource to sort out. As we've heard today, there isn't any evidence from the police to deal with that particular issue. And then finally, there is an objection from Councillor Yusra Hussain. She says, given the issues that have been raised in casework around Jessop Park, antisocial behaviour, drugs and alcohol abuse, crime and disorder, coupled with the fact that there is another off-licence nearby, it would not be wise to approve this. So those are the 3 objectors who have raised issues or concerns with the grant of this particular application. So we've come to the close of the meeting. What I'd ask everyone to do now is just to sum up the points for the panel to consider to help us arrive at our conclusion as to whether to grant the application. So I'll turn to the licensing officer, please.
Thank you, Chair. On the 2nd of December 2022, Kirklees Licensing Department received a premises licence application for Sun News 178 Healy Lane, Batley, WF17 8BN. The licensable activities apply for with the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises Monday to Sunday from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. The objections were received from the 3 ward councillors of Batley West. I've also checked with the police. They have informed me that they have not had any reported antisocial behaviour in the area over the past 12 months. On Monday the 16th of January, the Licence Department received an email from Greenhill Licensing Consultants. Attached to the email was a list of people in support of the premises licence being granted at Sun News. As this information was received after the 28-day consultation period, which ended on the 30th of December 2022, it's for the panel to decide as to what weight to give this information in relation to your decision. It is now the decision of the panel to either grant the licence with conditions, or refuse the application.
Thank you. And then over to yourself. Yeah, to make submissions, please.
Thank you. So, as you've heard earlier, in support of this application, if if you could take into consideration the experience for both family members over the last 15 years in this sort of scenario of running a small convenience store with an added section of alcohol, to take into consideration their training, their knowledge, and the fact that they live in the area, and also to take note that this is an individual case by case merit, so any determination for a grant of a license should be considered on the merits of the individuals. We would appreciate if you would take into consideration looking at the petition that was sent in. Unfortunately, it was a week late. If you would, that would be appreciated. If not, it just goes to show that their customers were supporting them getting an off license. It's not to say that they're going to be a dominant off license. This is a small section that they already sell lottery, grocery, newsagent products, and soft drinks, crisps, chocolates, that sort of thing. So this is an added thing. It's not a complete section on being an off license at all. Having said that, we'd just like to leave just saying that they propose to be responsible retailers in their endeavours and to report any incidences should they feel that it's out of their control. Posters will be up to stop people drinking outside the store, to remind them that not to open up any beverages that are alcohol-based outside the store. This could be implemented. Posters are already in place to be put up there, but this is an additional thing to prevent any litter of sort, to remind customers do not drink outside the store. So it's just to help the area to show that they are doing their side, and that can be implemented without any issues, any problems. Thank you.
Thanks. So we now need an opportunity to consider what we've heard today. So if I could ask everyone to step out of the room so that we can have a discussion about it and arrive at our decision. Thank you. Thank you. So the panel were asked this afternoon to consider the application for grant of premises licence for the Sun News 178 Healy Lane in Batley. We've listened to what's been said and we've taken the decision to grant the licences applied for. So Monday to Sunday, 7 to 2200 hours. So thank you so much for everybody attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.